and welcome. So this is Thursday night. It's just kind of me, just the way that I normally practice, which is I don't really have a plan. I just kind of decide what to do when I get there. I'm taking you on a journey with me into that realm. So what we're gonna do tonight, because I have a headache that I haven't been able to shake, is we're gonna do a more gentle kind of practice. Because that's how I practice if I'm not feeling that great or dealing with little aches and pains. So I'm deciding right this moment how I want to start this whole thing out. I think what I'd like to do is do an elevated kind of butterfly pose. So I'm going to use the blanket under my legs. And then depending on what props you've got, you might decide, you can do it without the elevation. You can just lie down if you want. But if you've got some props, like some yoga blocks or a stack of pillows, and you can sort of stack them up, maybe that way, and then lean back so that you've got kind of a slope. So your head is held a little higher, and then there's a nice little slope down to your legs. You could join me in that. I'm feeling like this is going to be a good beginning. And this pillow is kind of skinny, so my shoulders will hang over it. If you want your shoulders to be more supported, have a broader pillow so that there's more surface area there. Like a couch cushion would be good for that. Oh. Okay. Groaning and moaning and all kinds of things going on here. Oh. All right, so the first thing I check when I get here is just, does my low back feel like it's appropriately supported? Sometimes I have to scooch a little closer in or a little further away, or even pick up my pelvis and kind of curl my tailbone under to get it just right. And then if I want a lot of sensation in this kind of inner thigh part of the butterfly, then I'll have the support lower or do none. But if I want the sensation to be kind of light, then I put the support right underneath the edge of the hip. It's right where the hip, really as close to the hip socket as I can get on the back side there. And then kind of adjust the shoulder blades, make sure I like the head support. Sometimes another little blanket or a towel works really great under the head. And so take a few moments to kind of fiddle with your pose. I'm noticing my right shoulder is quite a bit different than my left, which might be contributing to the tension in my skull. So I'm going to do a really a subtle but quite often powerful adjustment. So I'm just going to take this arm a little further out and turn my head the other way. Now, this may not apply to you in your situation in particular tonight, but you can kind of glean a little bit with, experiment a little bit if you've got places that are achy or where there might be more tension. You can kind of experiment with trying adjustments that are slightly asymmetrical. I probably won't stay like this for the whole time, but even just a minute or two might help release some of the stress or tension that I'm feeling in my right side. So now we just breathe. Breathe and settle into whatever version of us opening pose you've decided to do for yourself. Stay for maybe another like 5 or 6 breaths. I'm just going to kind of gently start to unfurl this. So starting with the knees together, I'm releasing that. I'm not going to go anywhere off the slope just yet, but I am going to kind of windshield wiper my legs back and forth, and then maybe all the way to straight first. I might change my mind. Okay, and then kind of take the other things out. It sort of fell apart on its own, so that's kind of good. Okay. Okay, so I think the next bit of this is going to be some really, so just a nice little twist is where I'm kind of thinking about going. So starting with just this kind of windshield wiper thing, and I started with my feet pretty close together, but I'm going to slowly jiggle them out a little farther. All right, so then I'm just going to take them over to a side. So, go right first. You can do it, however you would normally do a twist. You can add some support. You can turn your head in different directions. I think I'm going to kind of keep my head mostly stable in the middle. I might change my mind when I get to the other side. But right now that's feeling kind of good. I'm just kind of feeling this pec muscle and this little outer hip situation. Gently stretching, and then there's a nice twist in my back that doesn't feel like I'm being too aggressive. I put a little bit of padding under my thigh to kind of stop the twist. And you can play with little elements like that, like what happens if there's a block in between the knees or one underneath. Sometimes I love a pillow in between. So one leg hits the ground and one leg rests on the pillow. For tonight, I made this choice. A little more mild for me. Which is the reason I made that choice. Okay, so I'm going to take a nice big inhale and slowly bring that top leg back. Just for a moment, just checking in to see as the pose kind of settles, is there any discomfort? Does it feel nice? What are kind of the ripples created by the pose? And then I'm going to do the same thing, but just going the other way. Twists are not your jam. Definitely try doing them with a ton of support. And on one side for me it's a little different, like the placement of the support has to be a little different. There it goes. And again, I'm going to check in. This side is my tight side, the one that was kind of telling me the story about tension. So I might decide to move the head. I think I'm going to leave it in the middle. had the blanket right and then it wasn't right, and then I tried again and then it wasn't right, and then I tried again and then it wasn't right, and now it is. The moral of the story that I'm trying to share with you is don't be afraid to sort of muck about a little bit with the props, to find the spot where you feel your body let go and relax a little bit better. Even if it's only just like a half an inch, sometimes it can make a difference. I'm going to do a couple more breaths here. Alrighty. Ooh, inhaling, coming on back to the middle. And then just one more time, I'm just going to give myself a chance to sort of pause and feel the sort of after state. Glow wasn't the right word, so I was trying to come up with another word. But there's kind of like just a little bit of a sense that there's like a little bit of vigilance, and then things kind of soften and let go. And I look for that moment where everything kind of feels like it gets a little softer. So I'm doing this thing with my arms. I'm going to invite you to do it if you want to, where I'm just kind of shaking the arm, and I'm trying to let my wrist be really loose and my fingers kind of flop around, and then doing the other side. I'm better at this. I'm more rhythmic with my right arm. My left arm is just a little bit more awkward. So if I do them together, it gets better, which I find really fascinating. Like, what's up with my brain that when they're doing it together, no problems, but doing it all by itself, it's really weird and awkward. I should probably look into that. All right, so I am done with the arms. I'm going to do the legs. So I'm going to do one leg at a time. I think I'll leave that guy down there. And just kind of shake. And again, I'm trying to let my ankle joint and my toes be as kind of loose as I can. A little bend in the knee works better for me. And I like my femur bone positioned kind of high in the hip socket. If it's too low, the weight of it kind of pulls on my hip flexor. So if it's close enough in, the hip flexor kind of sinks into the back and it feels better to shake. So you can experiment on your own and see what you think is better, but what I'm essentially trying to do is relax so much that the whole body sort of starts to take on the qualities of that jiggliness. Okay, I'm going to do the other leg. First though, just a little shimmy. Now I will tell you that the first time I did this in a yoga class, I was a little reluctant. It seemed kind of strange. I don't know why it seemed more strange than anything else that happens in a yoga class. It's all pretty freaking weird. But in any case, I was very observant. I wanted to know if it was really worth the time. And I have to admit I was surprised by how interesting and really, I mean, I found it quite interesting, quite powerful. That feels like too big a word, but it was impactful. It had a kind of impact on my overall sort of feeling of suspension and release and tension and softness that I got in my body. So what happens for me with the little shaky is that there's a greater sense that my body is relaxing. All the muscles seem to soften. And then there's this kind of tingly, effervescent sensation that is very pleasant. So see what's true for you. But I'm kind of a fan. Although I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit that to all of you all. That's kind of great. Alrighty, I'm coming to a seated position. Now, before you get there, if you want to do some cat shapes or you want to throw in a down dog or something like that, go for it. We might get to that tonight. We might not. I'm just going to see. Sometimes down dog, if I'm starting getting that on that beginning, the preamble to a potential migraine, Down dog makes it way worse. So I'm gonna see how this goes before I decide whether I'm gonna hang upside down or not. So, but you guys can do it. While you're up to whatever you're up to, I am gonna create a little seat for myself. So I'm taking my blanket, and this blanket is kind of thin. So I fold it quite a bit so that I get about 1 inch to 1.5 inches worth of thickness, because I want to sit up a little high for what we're about to do. Oh. Now, you can sit on a yoga block. I find them a little bit, like they're just a little bit too wobbly. Like a blanket kind of stretches out and it doesn't have really firm edges. So as you lean, it kind of gives way, whereas the blocks tend to have firmer edge. So I'm sitting so that my sit bones are resting on the highest part of the edge of the blanket. Oh. And then I'm gonna bring my knees as close together as I possibly can. For me, I need to sit up on something to pull this off. You can add a little bit more height, which is what I'm gonna do under this ankle. Just gonna throw that little block in there. So I'm trying to get my knees as best I can right on top of each other. Now, you can forego this whole thing and just do a cross-legged seating position, but the more I can get my knees in, the more this kind of travels down the side of my thigh. And I'm gonna do some little side bendy things and some little twisty things while my legs are in this position. So, armed with an extra block. I'm gonna start with a twist. Now my left leg's on top, so I'm twisting to my left. And because I'm sitting up and I have very short arms, I will need a block. So I'm going to play with my upper back, because again, most of the time, the tension, okay, so prior to COVID, I had migraines, but not regularly. Post-COVID, they're regular companions. Not always as disastrous, some are way worse than others, but definitely interesting to me. And I have to assume it's stress or tension or something. I could be wrong. Oh. But anyway, so I'm, functionally dealing with that. And so because of that, I'm more interested or paying more attention to how much tension I carry around my neck and how much tension I'm carrying in my shoulders. So I just play with the shoulder blades a little bit when I do twists these days. So I'm going to invite you to do the same thing. So here's what I'm doing. I take in this case, I've turned to my left, so my right shoulder blade is going forward. Okay, so it's coming off away from my back. Left shoulder blade's going into the back. And then I just kind of put it back where it came from, and then do it again. And let it go, and do it again. And it doesn't have to be a really big movement for me. It can be really subtle, but it does kind of serve to release whatever I might be holding in my upper back. And then the twist is being held by the spine. So I'm gonna come out of there. This guy is gonna come off, but all I'm gonna do with it is return it to a straight position. This guy's gonna stay where it is. Now you can have this leg tucked under on the bottom, in a half lotus on the top, or in this Janu Shirsasana shape. And I'm gonna go for this Janu Shirsasana shape. It's just a little bit kinder. I'm sliding right to the edge of my blanket so it pushes my hips forward, and then I'm gonna fold mindfully forward. I don't know how far I'm gonna go. Okay. I might wind up using a strap, but I'm not sure yet, so we're gonna put it over here in case I do want to do it. Sometimes I like the resistance created with a strap. So what I can do with it is put it on the ball of my foot and then kind of pull on it and push in like I'm pushing on a gas pedal. It just gives me a little bit of resistance to work with my quads. So I can bend the knee a little bit, pull the kneecap up a little, and then my hamstrings let go a little bit more. So if you've got tight hamstrings, mine are not particularly tight, but my calf muscles are. You can try that and see how that goes for you. I'm also letting myself fold in and kind of rest. I'm going to try to rest my forehead on the edge of this block. I'm not sure I'm going to make it work. paying attention to how much weight I'm putting here. I'm gonna do 2 more breaths. And come out of there. Okay, before I go too far, I'm going to jiggle out this leg. And then I'm going to jiggle out this leg. I'm not ready to do the other side yet, but I'm going to do something else. So I'm going to come into a lunge with this left leg, which was the one that was straight, and also the one that was on top. I'm going to have that be my forward leg in the lunge. So I'm going to kind of create a mobile, slightly fluid, but I don't know exactly how fluid. So I'm going to come forward and back and start there. Keeping my torso mostly stable, just kind of moving the hips back and forth. All right, that's feeling kind of interesting. So I'm going to stay with that for a couple more rounds. And then I have another idea of something I want to play with. Okay, so I'm going to come forward and open that to a little bit of a twist, and then come backward, kind of down the, like slightly more to the diagonal, open to the twist, and coming back. That's kind of fun. Now my kneecap, by lifting my foot like that, it kind of secures my kneecap and makes it a lot better ride here. So see if that works for you, if your kneecap feels like it's being kind of jerked around by the floor. All right, now I think what I'd like to do is a swan and a deer had a baby kind of pose. So I'm gonna put this leg in front. So this is like a pigeon, and you could stay with the pigeon. I mean, that works. But what I'm going to do that's slightly different is I'm going to bring this leg around to the side. So that's like the deer. And then I'm going to twist and sort of put myself a little bit over off to the side of this thigh. It might take a few props to pull this off. I'm pretty sure it will. Ooh. And then I'm just going to play with it till I feel the sensation kind of where I'm aiming. So a little bit in this hip, a little bit in this, like in the kind of gluteal area of this side, and more in the hip socket on this side, and then all along the side waist on the right. So I've got my left leg forward, so the right side is feeling more of the kind of side waist aspects of the twist. Not too deep a twist, it's just a little. One thing that I like about twist is that they sort of gather up tension, and when you let the twist go, they sort of soften everything. So they leave more freedom, more fluid movement in their wake. So I'm going to do 2 more breaths here. And I'm going to unwind this whole thing. Just see if I did anything crazy. Hopefully it's going to feel okay and nice. I like it when it feels nice. There's a little bit of asymmetry for sure. A little different sensation in their left side, right side. But it doesn't feel unpleasant. I'm down. All right. What that means is I'm doing the other side. Pretty much the same way, and then we'll just do a little experiment and see if we still like it when we get to the other side. The other end, anyway. Okay, so again, I have to get my hips pretty tall. So I folded my blanket quite a bit. And then I've got a little block here so that if, yeah, that right foot doesn't want to stay all the way on the ground, I have somewhere to put it. It's a little too tall. Maybe just under the toe. Okay. So first, just pausing and letting things settle, making sure I like how it landed before I add this little twist. And then I'm going to kind of play with my shoulder blade movement. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to come on out of here. Again, I'm going to kind of slide this guy out, but I'm not going anywhere right away. I'm just going to slowly morph this into the position for this Janu Sirsasana, or you might be doing one of the other variations with like the half lotus foot placement here, or even underneath the leg. You can do underneath the leg too. The issue for me with, I like the way it feels sometimes, and then sometimes the pressure lands all in my knee, so that's the only thing for me. If I'm having a day where my knees are feeling a little vulnerable, I don't do that version. The sort of half lotus variation, or one leg straight and one leg over the top, sometimes that feels really nice. So if you are inclined to do that with your hips, you can certainly give it a whirl. Oh. Okay, so again, I'm just giving myself a place to land. Playing with my extended leg, I'm bending it, pulling the kneecap up, trying a little less tension, a little more relaxation, playing with the kind of gas pedal action of the foot, right? Pushing and letting go. All the while keeping my spine as long as I can and just letting everything else get soft. The right side's got some tension in the inner part of the calf. The other side didn't have. I'm going to do just a little friction massage. Be careful with your inner knee. It's an area that can be really, really sensitive. So when I do friction massage in this area, I'm not super pushy. I keep the pressure super light. That's almost like a whisper of friction there. All right, and then I'm coming out. If I'm doing like down the quads or down the hamstrings, I'll often be a little more kind of pushy. I'll dig in a little bit, but right in this inner knee, it's so sensitive. That really super. It's you know, like when you put like eye cream on this really delicate skin around your eye, kind of in that sort of. It's almost more like you're petting it, really gently, not too aggressive there, but it feels nice when done like that. Friction massage can be used anytime you just feel like there's one side of the body that's pulling more than another, and what I'm aiming at are sort of the tendony kind of areas, which again is part of the reason to be really gentle. So there's, you know, stuff that comes from the inner thigh that attaches to the knee. There's stuff that comes up from the bottom, stuff that comes down across from the quads. And so the knees, the outside too, but in this inner area right in there with the knee, it's a lot of connective tissue attachments. And you can kind of feel the texture of it with your fingertip. So like there's, you know, one that kind of, there's sort of a circular aspect to it, and this guy is more on this little diagonal, and so you can kind of feel the texture. And if you just kind of go with the texture, and it's just, you're just trying to warm that area basically, and that's why it's friction. So if it's your hamstrings, you kind of friction up and down. And it can help, it does a couple interesting things. So it can help kind of realign fibers that might be sort of pulling or tugging or resistant to the movement pattern that it would normally have. So scar tissue, for example. And then the other thing, it's just that warming action can just bring a little sense of comfort. So it just makes it feel softer. So check it out on your own and see, like you can play with whatever your little tight places are. All right, so I'm coming back to this lunge idea on this side. I liked it on the other side, so I'm gonna do it on this side. And again, I'm gonna start with just kind of forward and back. Just sort of feel how the hip wants to respond, the hamstrings want to respond to this. It's feeling pretty good. I am going to add the little extra bits in a second. I'm going to do one more of these, and then I'll add the twist. So I'm going to come back and twist that open, and there's not as much room on this side, so I might make this side a little higher. I'm going to do two more, because I'm feeling some softness and release coming from this right side. Right. Now, giving that guy a little shimmy, giving this guy a little shimmy. I'm going to start with a child's pose. It's kind of like baby down dog, in my world anyway. Oh. I'm giving my child's pose a little wobble. Okay. And then I'm going to come out into a kind of a sphinx. Now, kind of lengthening the legs back a little. Trying to release my hip flexors as best I can. Into the floor. Now, if I'm too pushy here and I push too hard, my low back will kind of tell me stories about how it doesn't like me. So I'm interpreting that story. It does not speak English, my low back. But what I am going to do instead is do the crocodile with a little bit of a prop. So you can do it with the blanket. I'm going to do it with this pillow. So the crocodile, and there's lots of different places you'll see this word used, but we're going to call this one the crocodile. It's just sort of either with your chin or your forehead, resting on your arms, kind of laying prone like that. And the way it feels to me is like, it sort of feels like you were, you know, crocodiles lay under the water and just chill until something happens that they want to get excited about. So that's kind of the idea. So I've got this kind of notion of just letting go through the low back, the glute, the leg. And I'm going to put my forehead down, but that, you know, it's hard to talk to you that way. We're just going to breathe now. I have used blocks for this, so you could also use blocks instead of a pillow if you want. Do about 4 or 5 more breaths. So sleeping with this kind of a shape. I'm feeling like doing a little half frog slash scorpion, a frog-corpion, a scorpa-frog. So here's how this goes. You might be able to hold onto your foot with your hand, by the way. I'm going to attach a strap. So I'm going to put the strap around my foot. And then that is going to go over my shoulder. And then the other side is going to be a frog. So the leg is going to go out like a little frog flipper. And then I'm going to very gently just kind of pull my foot down toward my buttock with this strap. Again, you can hold your foot with your hand if you like. And then you can come back to the pillow, kind of that crocodile setup. I'm going to just prop up on my elbows because it feels fine. And then breathe. Stay for like 10, 11, 12 breaths. Somewhere in that neighborhood. You may not want to count that long. That's fine. Let's say it's like 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, somewhere in that range. Scrog? Still trying to come up with a good name. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me what you think we should call this pose. Or off to the side, wherever the comment section is. I think 3 more breaths will do. All right, so I'm gonna let go of the strap. When it gets all the way unfurled, I'm gonna roll to the side and take this little frog out. Now, I'm not going anywhere right away. I'm just gonna kind of try to get this strap off of that foot. I don't know that I can get it on this foot without my hand, so I'll wait. But we've got a little release going there. Oh, I have to say, the leg that was doing the little scorpion thing feels really good. Frog leg doesn't feel bad, it's just not quite as dramatic. Just notice what's true for you. My whole right thigh feels like it's melted into the ground. I'm into it, yogis. I'm gonna do it again on the other side. This is the fun of having 2 legs and 2 arms, is that you do have an opportunity to try it again on a different, similar limb and compare and contrast. Now, if you only have 1 leg or 1 arm, you could do that same arm twice and see if you get a different result. That might be kind of cool. So, just look for like, what would be the way for me to have this kind of slight experiment. Or you could just do the one side and then on the other side just pause, right? Let some time elapse and see how it shifts. Always try to kind of look for the way that you can, regardless of whatever your particular situation is, just kind of look for the way that you can kind of get curious about how these poses affect the body that you have. That's the thing I think that's really fun and cool. All right, so I've done the little frog on the right side, and now I've got the little scorpion on the left side. This is kind of a Halloweenish kind of pose. It kind of fits in with our October theme, and today's the first day of Scorpio, so happy birthday to all the Scorpios out there. And my youngest nephew, I only have one of those, and my oldest niece are both Scorpios. They keep their things close to the vest, y'all. Good luck wheedling their secrets out. I don't bother. I just let them have their secrets. They're entitled. Oh. nice. So I'm letting my left thigh just try to release, relax. I might let go a little bit, sort of that get a little softer, and then come back toward the pose. So again, I'm gonna hold this another 5 or so breaths. We'll see where we're at and if I want to change. This guy go, and then I'm gonna let this guy go, get the strap off my foot, and then see where it landed me. Oh yeah, that feels good. Holy smokes, y'all. Alrighty. Coming back to my friend the child's pose. Took a little while for me to make friends with this pose, so sometimes I like to revisit it just so that we're still friends tomorrow. If you're not friends with this pose, pick something else, man. Moment. I feel like what I would like to do kind of last-ish is some, well, first these. And then I want to do like some wide angle side bendy stuff. So if you're with me still for some sitting down yoga, I'm going to do that. If you want to do your wide angle twisty stuff standing up with your legs in a wide angle, I think you could do that. Like, what the heck? Give it a whirl. Don't let me stop you from experimenting. Okay, so in my world, it's gonna look like this. And I'm gonna put a little blanket under my knees. Now, the reason I put a blanket under my knees is because I tend to push the knee backward into the floor. And I can hyperextend because my knee is quite flexible, comparatively speaking. It might be the most flexible joint I've got. So, but hyperextending the knee is uncomfortable, and it makes the back of my knee hurt and causes some strain on the ligaments that hold my knee together, and I don't want to do any of those things. So I have discovered that the answer is, if I stick a little blanket under there, the knee doesn't hyperextend. It stops right at the just right amount of extension, straight leg. Okay, so then what I have also done is I have adjusted my pelvis a little bit. So I feel like I'm riding right on the front edge of my little ischial tuberosities, my little sit bones, butt bones, whatever you want to call those. Technically, they're ischial tuberosities. So that is going to be kind of where I perch myself. So I'm going to mostly try to keep my pelvis now right where it is, and then let my back do this whole side bendiness. So again, I'm trying to use this to release tension from my sacrum to the back of my skull. So I'm mostly interested in that territory, and that does not have to be a big shape. I'm, up here perched up a little higher. I've got a side bend, but I'm not trying to get my ear all the way to my shin bone. That doesn't mean you can't. I'm just keeping this a little more conservative. I don't want to feel crunchy on this side of my waist. I want to feel just a little length on this side. Okay, so now I'm going to do something that's a little bit more intense for me generally, and that is to wrap my arm behind my back as far as it'll go. Then I'm going to let my shoulder relax, and then I'm going to let my head hang to the side. This can be quite intense. I'm going to turn my head until it's just right. I don't want it to be like the Papa Bear, too hot. I don't want it to be like the Mama Bear, too cold. I want it to be just right. The baby bear, just right. Oh. So sometimes that means changing where my chin is so that the stretch in my neck is just the right amount and in just the right place. And every now and then I find myself kind of tightening up my mouth, so I'm trying to keep my mouth super soft, my lips super fluffy. Inviting. Okay, I'm coming all the way out. I'm going to take my head with me. Oh, and I'm not going over to the other side right away. So I'm going to come back to these little like shimmy movements back and forth. Just kind of let things settle. I had cabbage for lunch today. All cruciferous vegetables make me burp, so I apologize. I've tried not to be super loud about it, but still. I don't know what it is about those veggies, but in any case, I'm back. I'm back to this placement that I have got with myself. Now, you might be doing your other side in a different way. That's fine. I'm going to just talk about it the way I'm doing it. You do it your way, right? So if you were standing up and kind of leaning forward and kind of swaying over to one side, you're going to get a similar shape. Similar things are going to happen. It'll be different. It won't be exactly the same, but similar things will happen. Okay, so again, I'm keeping myself just like a little bit higher up, a little bit longer for this part. So I don't feel like I'm crunching in under here. I'm just lengthening this right side. And then playing with the range of motion that I've got on that side. So I'm inviting you to do the same thing. Always when I'm just telling you what I'm up to, I'm inviting you to try it too. And if you get in there and you say, not for me, do your thing. This is the way that I practice yoga. So I practice yoga by like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. Let's just play. Let's see what's gonna happen. I have preconceived ideas, right? Because I've done yoga poses before. Most of the shapes I've done millions of times. I don't know millions, but many times. Thousands of times for sure. And so it's really just about what's happening today. In this shape that I already kind of know. Where are the tight spots? Where are the spots that are providing resistance? Like tonight I'm kind of dealing with this sort of, so it's like a sensation like there's a dimming in the in my visual cortex. It's just not, everything's a little blacker. But as I've been practicing and as I've been sort of relieving this pressure, I feel like I can open my eyes again. So that's helpful and hopeful. Hoping that it spells good news. So you're just watching, right? That's all we're doing. We're just watching what happens as I'm doing these poses. Does it feel like I'm doing good things for myself? I have definitely done not good things for myself. There's a lot of poses that I have practiced in the course of my lifetime that I am no longer practice because they aren't good for me. They were fun. You know, I'm not saying, you know, that I didn't learn. I learned. They're not necessarily things that are good for me. And it's okay to edit out poses. It's okay to come to poses at different times. Like maybe you don't do the pose right now, but 10 years from now, it'll be your favorite pose. So you get to change your mind. And you get to, you get to pay attention to like, what is the pose doing for me? Is it doing good things for me? Is it not doing good for me? Things for me. Often when I have, there's like a trajectory with a headache, where at the beginning of a headache, I can do yoga and sometimes even stop it. And then there's a certain point where it's like, nope, no more. Like now I just have to go get in the dark, lie down. But that's a thing you learn, right? So headaches may not be your thing. Maybe your thing is anxiety, or your thing is this like thing that's happening in your shoulder, or you've got a sore hip, or whatever. You'll learn as you practice, like what are the sensations that say, yeah, practice is going to help, And, and what are the sensations that say, not tonight, not tonight? Because sometimes it really does help. It's okay to practice when you're not feeling so hot. Okay, speaking of which, I think what's gonna happen next is some Shavasana. So I am gonna make this a fluffy Shavasana. I'm gonna make a pillow to put underneath my head. I'm gonna put this other pillow underneath my legs and just make it kind of nice. I'm not cold, or I would cover with a blanket, but if you are cold, cover with a blanket so it's nicer. What I am gonna do, if I can find one easily, is I'm gonna put a little bit of pressure on my eyeballs. Nope, it's not easy to find. So I will do it with this yoga strap. Okay. Sometimes I have an eye pillow laying around this living room, but it wasn't where I normally keep it. So that means, because it is a favorite item of one of my coworkers, that it is very likely either under the couch or behind the washer. I will go look for that later. But I can use a strap. So if I take a yoga strap, and what I'm going to do with it is I'm just going to, and you can use a scarf for this, scarf would work, I'm just going to triple it up. So there's a tiny bit of weight to it. And I'm going to set that over my eyes. Now I don't want the weight to necessarily be on my eyeballs. What I like is the weight to be right here on the side of the eye next to the temple. So with an eye pillow, there's these little flax seeds, and I'll just kind of meander them around, migrate them around until they rest right on that little temple area. And again, not too much pressure, just a little bit can be really nice. Some people like it to be right on the eyeball itself, so you can experiment. For me, it's nicer if the weight kind of comes in on the sides. So this is really light, not as heavy as the eye pillow, but it works. It is like there's a little tiny bit of pressure there. And then I'm just going to adjust the neck and shoulders and my legs until I think, yep. Okay, Shavasana. Shavasana is corpse pose. I can't think of a better Halloween pose than corpse pose. So we're trying to travel to the land of the dead here, y'all. What we bring back from the land of the dead, we'll find out. We're coming back, don't worry. So we're going to lie down. We're going to let ourselves get completely soft, as relaxed as possible. Let even the breath get softer and more relaxed. take a moment to notice your breath. And then you can start to wiggle. I'm going to do the fingers and toes first. And yawn. Some wrist and ankles. Oh. Now what I'm gonna do essentially is I'm just gonna roll to my side and hang out there for a moment. Just so there's kind of a transition zone. And then I'll get myself upright. So thank you for joining me and hanging with me tonight through a little, there's probably like a little more of a gentle practice than a hatha practice, but hopefully there was some interesting aspects to it along the way. So let's take a nice big breath and let go with a big sigh. Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome to the rest of your night or your day, whenever you're watching this.